Today's guest has worked for two major metropolitan newspapers, written magazine articles and books, and since 2008, she has been the main researcher and editor of the website Sky Ships Over Cashiers, which features a wide variety of cutting-edge topics from UFOs to secret underground bases, and from Bigfoot to Cherokee Little People. Her most recent books, Spy in the Sky, Secrets and Cover-Ups on Earth and Beyond, Bigfoot, Beyond the Footprints, Underground Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains, Cherokee Little People Were Real, and Tangible Evidence of Jesus Left Behind for Us to Find. Let's welcome today's guest, Mary Joyce.
Hi,
Welcome,
it's
Mary.
good to be with you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's obviously we're in the, in terms of what's been in the news recently of things being shot down and UFOs being shot down, all the different types of distractions or realities that nobody really has a hand on in terms of what's real and what's not real. Do you have any, first of all, take on that?
I think we're just dealing with human stuff right now with the balloons and that type of thing. I don't think there's any alien involvement at all.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get a little bit into maybe a little bit of your background in terms of how you became interested in the work that you do presently.
It's kind of a two-step thing. Basically, at one time, I lived on Cocoa Beach between Patrick Air Force Base and the Kennedy Space Center. And that's where I got to meet an astronaut and a few other NASA people. That's where I saw my first UFOs. But then I moved to North Carolina and moved into a hotspot. I don't live in Cashiers, but I'm nearby. And there were so many UFO sightings in that area that we started a website. And the website is called skyshipsovercashiers.com. And it's expanded from there. We cover many more things than that, but that was how it all got started.
So you basic in terms of your interest in UFOs, did it start earlier in your life? Did you have an interest in that kind of spectrum
Oh,
of?
I wasn't a kid that had any abductions or saw anything as a child. There is a photo of me holding a telescope when I'm about 3, so I guess I was interested in the sky. Um, but no, this started as an adult. I worked at Brevard Community College it's got a new name now, but in Florida. And that's where I began to really get into all of this.
Yeah, it's interesting because so much of the work you do is investigative and in terms of uncovering stuff, and that drive to seek to find information, which assists others in developing a deeper understanding for what really is sometimes not seen but is hidden. And on the subject of things that are hidden, some of the work you do are investigating what exists on Mars, on the moon, in Antarctica. And your most recent book, maybe you could just talk a little bit about that in terms of some of the
Actually, that's
photos.
something I'm still excited about. It came out a little bit in the middle of last year, and it was like a mission because over the years working for skyshipsovercashiers.com, I found so many things that were being hidden from us. Now, I'll give you an example so you know what I'm talking about. When I was using Google Earth to explore Antarctica, I found two entrances into Mars. One of them, the larger one, was like 300 feet across, 100 feet high. And I posted both entrances on the website. The next day, or no more than 2 days later, it was like somebody came along and poured India ink on those entrances so you wouldn't know they were there. And it was actually several steps in covering that up because I went back to it and I saw what had happened. And then I kind of backed up so I could see both entrances at the same time. And what happened was very briefly, it said hollow earth entrance 1, hollow earth entrance 2. And then after that, it all went to a sheet of ice as if that entrance was never there. I've had a lot of things happen like that. So that convinced me that a lot of things I was finding, the famous they didn't want the public to know about.
Yeah, in terms of anybody looking to seek the information, what drove you to actually go on Google Earth or and Google Mars in terms of getting started with that? Was there somebody told you that it exists, or how did
I
that
don't know
begin?
how I learned about Google Earth. I've used it for quite a number of years. And I actually didn't sit down at one time and do this book. I've been collecting this stuff and suddenly realized how much there was, and it needed to be put together in something that people could easily comprehend. And it's a picture book for adults. I mean, there are photos on every page but three. And not only do I show you pictures of things on Mars and the moon and under the ocean and Antarctica, I give people the coordinates. So anybody can go and use Google Earth and find these sites for themselves. And the reason I do that is I'm sick and tired of all these people who get their kicks out of using Photoshop to create alternate realities. So people become very suspicious of things that they see. So that's the reason I've done this diligently through the book.
Yeah. And, people who, like yourself, who seek this information, and people who are watching this will be interested in finding this information as well. Why doesn't the Google Earth, why don't they first dismiss or cover it up right away rather than expose the information? Do you have any thoughts on
Well,
that?
what I think happens is that they kind of monitor certain people that are doing things like this. They can't go and cover up everything. If they did, it wouldn't
Right.
look like reality at all. So when somebody stumbles on something really hot, then they go in and cover it up. At least that's been my experience at this point.
Yeah. With regards to the some of the photos that you've sent me, which I've looked at, it's very fascinating, and I'll share them. I mean, to see actual, like you said, bases or entranceways in Antarctica, uh, like actual openings. It looks like almost like a can opener into like a soda can, like an opening.
Good description. Good
Uh,
description.
yeah, and some of the other things like the mothership of that's located by the sun. It's, I don't know the size of that. You'd probably know the depth or the dimensions of it
Oh,
based upon.
and now that's the one section that I did not discover using Google Earth. I had the good fortune of connecting with a man from the Netherlands back in 2013, and he was taking original NASA photos that are taken by the SOHO satellite, which is constantly taking photos of the sun. And what he would do is he called it dusting and cleaning. He would get rid of the debris so you could see it more clearly, and he would zoom in. And when he did that, the detail was incredible. I mean, there's one we call the Flying Phoenix, and it looks like a phoenix because it looks wing shaped,
Yeah,
but it also looks like a giant cruise ship or an apartment building or a condo. And I think of it as a cruise ship going through the galaxy having a tour. But these things are huge. Every single one that was found around the sun is bigger than Jupiter, which is our largest planet. And we have some that are longer or wider than the diameter of our sun, which is what, 360,
wow.
no, 860,000 miles across. And when you find something like something that looks like an extension cord that goes out and it's longer than that width of the sun, we are talking about sizes that most humans can't really begin to comprehend.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, on the Google Earth or Google Mars, wherever the information is coming from, I guess there's a scale which obviously people can see the reference point of the sizes. Your website, Sky Ships Over Cashiers, and a little bit we spoke a little bit earlier before we got on about Cashiers itself. And as I said, I was planning on visiting the area. I'm drawn to these types of places. One of the places I was in I think Conway in New Hampshire. Uh, had a feeling something happened in this place. I didn't know about the Betty and Barney Hill story at that time.
But that's
Uh,
where it was.
yeah, I came outside, I Googled it out, and it said in this particular town, exactly where I was staying, was a landmark where they showed where the abduction took place. And
Wow.
so it was very fascinating. And now the same thing is happening with going to your area or the area.
Cashiers,
Yeah.
Cashiers is the hub. That whole area. It's goes way beyond that town, but we have UFOs, we have Bigfoot, we have Cherokee Little People, we have underground bases. Those four topics right there can keep you kind of digging and scooting around a whole lot.
Well, it's on the way to Florida, so it should be interesting. What is there? Do you have any idea why that area is a hotbed for these types of activity?
Oh, well, as far as the Bigfoot go, they love the mountains. They love places where there's caves. They love the forest. So if you give them caves and water and forests, they're very happy. And it's lightly populated. So that would be the reason for the Bigfoot. The UFO, there is a underground base that's not too far from there. There may be a connection with that. It's also not too far from an underground ground base beneath the Smoky Mountain National Park. As you fly, by car, it would take you a little bit longer.
Right.
Um, so there's probably multiple reasons for some of this. Why the original Cherokee little people settled here might be the same reasons that the Bigfoot did, which would be the forest and the water and the caves for protection.
The subject of Bigfoot. I view Bigfoot because I haven't investigated it, just as I have for people who've never investigated UFOs. They may look at a phenomenon and say, it's questionable. For me, UFOs over the last 5, 6 years, having witnessed one, having some type of encounter, has brought me closer to the truth of that subject. I've never had the inclination or motivation or desire, but maybe you can share a little bit about Bigfoot.
About the Bigfoot. The book that I've written, which is called Bigfoot Beyond the Footprints, is kind of a very human portrayal of the Bigfoot. They're not all monsters. And I don't know, there's something in the human psychic that likes to be scared, that likes to see creepy things. At least, I don't know, there's an awful lot of that. But these Bigfoot, they have family. They've healed human beings that have become their friends. And they are very particular about who they will open up with. They can tell if you're a good guy or a bad guy.
Right.
And that's why these people that are out hunting them aren't going to be too lucky for the most part, because they can feel them coming long before they get there. And I mean, there's I'll give you one title that we've had recently on the website, and it's something like female Bigfoot like to look pretty too. And there's a gal who has had Bigfoot living on her land all of her life, and she said that she will see them get twigs that have multiple twigs at the end of them, and they will use that as a comb to comb their hair.
Wow.
She's seen them take flowers and put flowers in their hair. Because she's gotten real close to them, she had one request that she wanted a red ribbon that she could put in her hair. I suspect that Bigfoot that live close to human beings are more likely to have this kind of behavior. I don't think it's as common out in the Rockies where they're really much more isolated. Here, we just have so many people in the eastern half of the United States, and the Bigfoot have to learn how to either live with them or, tiptoe around them. And I think they become more humanized because of that.
Well, that's an entrance way for me to have an understanding. I'm going to look further into it. Uh,
Okay.
on the subject of getting back to UFOs and getting back to maybe the subject of what is seen on Mars, Antarctica, and the Moon. Uh, just getting back to sharing maybe a little bit about. I think you sent me a photo of a crash landing on Mars, which was very, very interesting. Maybe you can give the dimensions and
I can do a little bit of that. There's one UFO that I found parked on Mars, and you can tell it's parked because it cast a shadow. It hasn't crashed into anything. It's just sitting there. And if I remember correctly, it's 3.5 miles in diameter, which is pretty good size unless you compare it to the ones around the sun. 3.5 miles is a good size. That's one that I have in there. I have two where you can see where they crashed, and you can actually see the skid mark, and then they plow into the soil of Mars and they come to an end there. One of them, the skid mark is over 4,400 feet in length, and then you can just see where it came to a crashing stop. And that one's good size too, not as big as the other one. I think it's God, I gotta get better at statistics. I think it's like 400 plus feet across, which is good size.
yeah, I saw the picture of it. It does look like it's almost like a sand flea crawling under, stuck
Oh,
into like I'm coming up with these thoughts because they something significant to me in terms of the way it looks. It's amazing. How do you find these things? I mean, is there a specific place to look based upon information you've heard of
there's a
where?
whole lot of time and luck that goes into this. I will sometimes just take time just to go cruising around a portion of Mars, and most of the time you come up empty. But over time, I've gotten fortunate enough to catch some of these things. One of the biggest catches up there, it's not a UFO, but I think it's significant. And it was because I did something that I think you do a lot. and you try to get out of the box and look at things differently.
Yeah.
And normally when I cruise a planet with Google Earth, I go from left to right or right to left. One day I decided to go from pole to pole. That's when I discovered 27 square cut entrances into Mars, all in a line spread out over 16 miles. And they're big entrances. They look like warehouse entrances, or I don't know. That's the best image I can think of. If you look at it, you'll probably come up with something new and inventive. They look the same, except they vary in size. They can be anywhere from 400 feet across to over 1,000 feet across. And though they look the same, if you look around the detail around the entranceways, they're all just slightly different. So we're not seeing the same thing over and over again. I had found entrances before, but I never would have found this line of them, except I started exploring in a different direction. So it's real important to get out of the box and make yourself see the world differently.
Yeah, when you share information, like I think people want a challenge anyway. When information is given freely, it's as if people take it for granted and they don't really understand the significance of some information. But when you're challenged or held back from getting that information and in doing the investigative type of work, then it becomes significant. And to share that work like you're doing is very profound.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody else come up with all this kind of stuff, and that's why I did it. Any book that I've done is because somebody else hasn't already done it. I see no reason to go out and just duplicate or come up with a different version of the same thing. So
Do
that's my
you,
motivation in
yeah.
everything I've done.
I mean, do you operate on intuition in many cases? In some cases?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I sometimes, yeah, I feel guided when things just happen to click into place. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I read the Akashic records, and so one of the things I'm interested in doing is making contact or investigating these types of phenomena myself. Interestingly enough, I did a reading for myself, and I heard about Saturn, and on the outer rings of Saturn were a galactic force, and it was confirmed by a woman by the name of Angela Thompson Smith, who is a remote viewer,
Right.
or ERVA. And we spoke personally, and I discussed that with her. Um, as you've traveled through these particular subjects, you've come into contact with many people who have shared personal information or confidential information, or after they finish working at NASA with these particular subjects that confirm a lot of the information or enlighten new information. Maybe you can just share a little bit with us with some of the kind of
Um,
conversations or information.
when I lived near NASA on Cocoa Beach, I did get to meet an astronaut, was at the place where he was living at that time. There was a small group of us there on a Sunday and spent several hours with him. And he was trained as an astronaut, but mostly he worked at mission control. So if anything went wrong, because he had the astronaut and the engineering training, he could correct things from mission control. And he was in that position at one time, watching all the monitors. And on one of the monitors, he saw a very tall alien in some kind of spacesuit in the open bay of the space shuttle with two human astronauts. And that was on the screen for a little bit of time. And he felt that was one of the things that the public had a right to know. Well, I'm telling you, he got in a whole lot of trouble. When I say a lot of trouble, he lost his job, he lost his pension, he got blackballed when he tried to get any other kind of job. And I think he ended up being a bus driver when he was in the later years of his life. Um, but he just felt it was not right to keep everything from the public. And I guess he just simply talked too much.
Yeah, was that the person who was friends with Vanna von Braun?
It is. And his name is Clark McClellan. He passed away about a year ago. And through him, I also learned a lot about Werner von Braun because the two of them became friends. They had so many interests in common, UFOs and engineering and space travel. And von Braun confirmed a lot of things that we hear sometimes. Like he said that Hitler had a Shangri-La that was beneath Antarctica. Well, we hear little rumors of this other ways, but again, as a former newspaper editor, I'm always looking for something concrete. I mean, I believe in intuition. I believe that there are people who can really do remote viewing, but that cannot stand alone and convince people. You can tie them together,
Right,
but to
right.
stand by itself, you will have more doubters than believers.
Yeah. But in terms of, I mean, I've heard from, or I've seen interviews with people from the Canadian military. I think the man name is Paul. I forget Paul Haser. I don't know the last name. Maybe I got it in.
Heiler or something like
Yeah,
that.
Hyler, correct. And he was,
Hillier, I'm bad on it too right
yeah,
now.
he spoke about Project Paperclip in terms of the Nazis that were recruited here to help with the projects that Werner von Braun was associated with, and how they were uh, fighting, not fighting, they were sent to Antarctica to actually try to dispose of a Nazi groups that were building bases in Antarctica. That was from his personal story. And as you
Hmm.
said, Hitler's Shangri-La in terms of
Right.
developing and creating a new race or extending the race that was in progress. Um, and so Antarctica itself has a history, but you've expressed the long history of Antarctica itself in terms of how long it's been there. And now, due
Oh
to the
yeah, that's another thing I got really excited about. And I don't get credit for the initial finding of this. There's a gal who got a stroke at a very young age. She was under 50. And so when she was confined to bed, which she no longer is, she spent a lot of time with the computer looking for things. Well, she spent, I think, about 3 months exploring Antarctica, thinking there must be something there, some anomaly. And she found the ruins of an ancient city. Well, man, that really, really caught my attention. And it ended up between the two of us that we found 5 ancient cities that are just now beginning to appear because the ice in Antarctica is melting rather rapidly. The exciting part of this is not the fact that we found a city, but the fact that most scientists say that continent's been covered in ice for about 34 million years. That makes these structures the oldest in the world. And that's pretty darn exciting.
what exactly are the structures itself? I mean,
You can see they're square shaped. You can see like the walls, like everything else, when it's old, the roofs all cave in and the walls remain.
right.
And not only do you have these walled structures or like rooms or like houses, the whole glob of them, I'll say, kind of meander along hill lines or rivers or things that are very organic, just the way cities evolved during, here on Earth today.
Yeah, maybe there is something in the fact that things are needed to be exposed to actually tie something to the history of something else in terms of
I don't know why there's such an effort to keep history from us.
right.
And this is another thing where I give people the coordinates, I show you the pictures, I also show you how they muddled them up a bit. If you don't know that they were there, you can't tell now that they are there. But I have the original shots. So then you can see still hints of it, but somebody's been covering it up. Why? Why can't we know that there was something here 34 million years ago? Why?
Yeah. So in terms of living in the Cocoa Beach area, I guess that's by Satellite Beach area
It's
or
just immediately north of Satellite, yes.
yeah, okay, I've been to that area itself. Fascinated with that whole history in terms of the space program. Um, what was the past relationship between the NASA itself and aliens in some capacity? Has there been some type of connection other
One
than
of the one book that's very worth reading, and I won't be able to give you the title, but I'll give you the author. His name is William Tompkin, and he worked at the highest level of NASA. That means he was reporting directly to von Braun. And the things that stand out from his book, where he talks about working there, is he said they had these beautiful secretaries, that almost looked like perfection, but they proved to be aliens who would always give them information just when they needed it. And our space program initially developed rather rapidly. And it was because we had ETs working within NASA. And there's other people, but William Tompkin is one of the ones that has put that in book form for all of us to learn about.
and who was the one that was it Werner von Braun who hired these women?
I don't know. I do not know the answer to that. I really don't.
Yeah,
It's
no,
a good
I find it very interesting because, you know, not only the development of these particular Aryan races as Hitler was trying to incorporate, but the connection to the UFO program that I guess Germany had reverse technology at the time. I don't know what year it was. Maybe you could just, you know, elaborate a little bit on in terms of Germany's the Nazi Germany's connection
Well,
to.
this information that I got through Clark McClellan via Von Braun is that the aliens from Aldebaran are the ones that were working with the Nazis and gave them the kind of advanced technology that they obviously had because they were ahead of the rest of the world. Um, I don't know what to think of that because the Nazis have a terrible reputation and the things they did are just awful. So why were those aliens so willing to work with them? I don't know the answer to that. But he did say that they were from Aldebaran.
Yeah. I've been in contact with specific shamans who live in Ecuador, doing shamanic work. They express their connection to specific alien races when they go in the mountains to do shamanic practices. Having gone in ships themselves, shown different waterways underneath the earth and the different passageways for some particular reason, and speaking about the different types of races that are in conflict with one another in terms of controlling different aspects of the universe. Uh, I mean, I've heard about different races living in America amongst us. Is there a specific hotbed of where that takes place or where it may be seen more readily?
I don't know if I connect it with a spot.
Okay,
There's certain people
okay,
that they will connect with, and I almost feel like it's more important who they're connecting with than where those people are.
right, okay. Well, I only insofar as where a person could actually be in a place where they're more isolated from the population. That's what I meant. Um,
There's probably truth to that.
yeah. Okay. So, and what's the connection between specific alien races coming here? What's their intention for somebody who has no idea about the subject of this?
I don't think they can be boiled down to one. They're as diverse as we humans are. And we have the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I think they do too. And some of the ones some of the aliens I want absolutely nothing to do with. And then there's those that are kind of neutral who value the planet, but not so much about the humans. And there are those that I think very much care about humans and would love for us to survive and become all that we could be.
Yeah. You know, from my experience, I've interviewed people, and in terms of a person's, let's say, not only energetic vibration, right, in terms of how their level of consciousness, but also their ability to have an audience, so to speak, of where people can hear or be a channeler or a messenger of the information of the things we're discussing as well.
And people can be a channel as long as they don't let their little egos get in the way and mess it up. And that too often happens. And sometimes the ETs or the spirit realm will use somebody as a channel, and the channeler will become too cocky, and uh, then they'll sometimes disconnect with those people. But at the same time, those cocky people will start faking it
Yes,
because
yes,
and you just have to be real careful.
yeah.
The human ego and the desire for being famous and powerful is detrimental to us all.
Now, your website is called Skyships Over Cashiers, and we discussed why it's in cashiers, but what's the information? What's the relevance of all the information for the public?
I don't know if I can answer that question. You want to zero in just a little tighter?
Yeah, I guess more specifically is what does a person benefit from looking at the information?
I think we all need to spend our lifetimes busting out of boxes that limit us. I don't think we're intended to be so limited. And the way the world is, it keeps pushing us into being a certain way. And we have to look for opportunities to expand our knowledge and our understanding. And so many of the topics that we have on the Skyships Over Cashiers website do that. They make you think about other dimensions, other creations, other just everything.
Right,
And that's
right.
important. It's important. We're supposed to grow.
Having worked in the media in newspapers, I think in Orlando, I'm not familiar with the other one.
I worked at the Orlando Sentinel, and then in Michigan, I worked for the Oakland Press, which is like suburban Detroit.
What is the opinion of the editors themselves, or the newscasters, or the agency itself in terms of this subject?
They're very inhibited. When I was working at the um, Oakland at the Orlando paper, that was a long time ago. That was before I got into any of this, so I didn't challenge anybody.
Right.
Um, I did find that in Michigan, they were open to some of the stories that we did. Usually more of a psychic, um, um, like some of the writers went to a local psychic, and they came back all excited. And so I'm sitting there editing the story and lectured myself. I'm saying, Mary, if you're so darn open-minded, you need to try this out for yourself. And the woman proved to be a very legitimate psychic, and I was very fortunate that my first exposure to one was somebody who was legit. But we did do an article on that, so
Yeah.
that shows openness.
I mean, usually the first place that we receive some type of resistance is in our family, of speaking about certain subjects uh,
Yes,
that family members don't understand.
that's a common thing.
Yeah.
Um, my sisters have come around, but I think at one point they thought I was crazy.
So that leads me to the path of seeking and feeling alone at different times, in terms of not having the ability to share this information heart to heart with people we grew up with, friends and family and the like. Um,
You can only share as much as that person's ready to receive.
yeah,
And it's
right.
like feeding a baby. If you give them a spoonful and they swallow it, that's great. If they start spitting it out, you just quit putting it up there. And you just have to realize where everybody's at, and hopefully you'll give them one more extra spoonful that they might not have gotten otherwise. But you can't change everybody.
Okay, I agree with that. It's a difficult path, but it's agreeable. Oh, in 1952, we had an alien visitation over Washington. I guess Eisenhower is the president at that time.
Yeah, and it was a big, big deal. It was in all the papers, and but according to von Braun, those were the German ships.
Really?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me. And so what took place? Was there any inclination that they knew that it was of another of a German
I,
technology?
neither you or I are old enough to remember what happened in 1952 with any accuracy whatsoever.
Right.
So I don't know um, how it was received. I do know some people who saw it firsthand, and they became lifelong seekers of truth regarding these kinds of things. So it did have an impact on people. Um, and it wasn't until more recent years that I even heard the idea that they were German ships. So
Very fascinating. I've heard you speak about the tall white aliens.
yeah, I have no direct thing with that, except I have met um, Hall in person and his wife, and he comes across as the nicest guy in the world. He seems smart and underspoken and honest beyond belief. And he was in the military out in the western part near Nevada, and there were tall white aliens living there.
Right.
And he was the only weatherman that was put at that area who didn't run away scared to death. I mean, he actually stayed for some time, and they began to communicate. And the tall whites, some of them, it's regarded almost like a bus stop here, like
Right.
touring the universe. You stop here, for a while. The military is very aware of them. They cooperate with them. They live in the underground, in a mountain out in that area. Um, the silly stories are the ones that stick in my head, because he talked about some of the female tall whites loving to look at his Sears robot catalog, and they would let him know what kinds of things they were interested in, because one of their kicks, and this sounds like an American tourist, one of their kicks was to, as best as possible, look like a human and go into Vegas or a place like Vegas and
Wow.
see if they could just be tourists without being noticed. And there's enough kooky people in Vegas that they could get away with this sometimes. But that was something they enjoyed. And if I remember correctly, because this is a long time ago, um, the military would get some of these things for them, and so there was absolute cooperation.
Yeah, interesting. Um, where do you personally go in terms of research, in terms of the most interesting subject? Is there a specific of the work you do and of the books you've written? Is there a specific subject itself that stands out to you as being more interesting or more closer to you than the other subjects?
Well, put it this way: if I kept doing the same subject over and over again, I'd be bored. So
Yeah,
we
right.
have to remember that. The thing I'm the most excited about right now is those things I've discovered on Mars and on the moon and at the bottom of the ocean in Antarctica, because that information is so timely and we don't know about it.
Right.
So right now, I guess I'm more interested in that.
Okay, so the area of Cashiers is known obviously as a hotbed, as you discussed, and just on the subject of military bases underground in North Carolina, is there a connection to that, do you think?
There might very well be. People have, I can't positively say it,
Right.
but UFOs have been seen over some of these bases. Um, there is a lake that is just to the west of a underground facility called Perry, Pari, and I haven't, but people claim they have seen UFOs go into that lake and disappear. So it could be an underwater entrance into the underground facility. We know there's an underground facility there. We've gotten confirmation in many, many ways.
What about stories of people from other races living within that area that people have known about?
I haven't gotten confirmation of that. I really haven't. Um, Unless they're dressing up like mountain men, and then they could probably blend in anywhere.
Right, right, right. Okay, so where do you go from here in terms of your research? Where are you? What's your next project? Is there something you're working on, as you said, to further yourself with this information?
I really don't work that way. What happens is things either build up and I realize I have a whole lot of stuff that I can put together in a book, um, or somebody will just contact me, or I don't know, it just comes. It's like I sometimes feel like it's being directed from a realm beyond myself, because I can't go shake all the trees.
Yeah, I recently saw the written numbers 1619 in the sky that you posted
Right.
on the website, and that was fascinating.
Yeah, it's still we're pretty sure it's a hologram for several reasons. One, we've had other holograms in that area. Of course, we have many ships in this area. Uh, and unlike skywriting, those things quickly disappeared. And then a couple hours later, the same 1619 reappeared, but it was more sharply focused. So skywriting doesn't work like that. I we don't have a real good answer
Yeah,
for it, and to this day we don't know for sure what it means. I posted it originally in 2015, reposted it because 1619 has become pretty well known now, about being so important in Black history.
right.
So as part of Black History Month, I decided to repost it.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
Now you might be interested in this because I know you're leaning towards the spiritual aspect of things. Um, and this is a hologram, so I'm going to tie the two together. There was a UFO up in the sky over Cashiers, and suddenly it did a beam of light, came down and hit the driveway of this woman. Her name is Glennis. And then over in the tree, a projection of Jesus about 30 feet tall appeared in the tree, and it looked very real. She said the hair flowed like it was in a gentle breeze. She could see details, like the details of the thongs that he was wearing on his feet,
Wow.
the details of his belt. He had a pouch around his neck. I've never seen Jesus portrayed with a pouch around his neck, but that makes sense. If you need coins or money, you how are you going to carry it? I mean,
Wow. Wow. Wow.
could very well be that. And the reason I say it was a hologram, not only because of the beam of light coming down this way, But when she moved to another room and looked out a different window, she couldn't see it. So, like a hologram, you have to be in the right position to
Yes,
see
yes,
it,
yes.
and you have to have more than one projection to create the hologram.
Wow, so interesting. Very interesting. If somebody were interested in getting in contact with you or to view the website, where could they reach you, or what is the
All
website's?
right. You can get everything through the website. It's skyshipsovercashers.com. Everybody knows how to spell all the words except cashiers. And cashiers is spelled just like a cashier at the grocery store. And under Editor's Corner, I have a little description of each of my books. You can get them all through Amazon. There's a way to make contact, if you see a sighting or just want to contact me. All that information is on the homepage at skyshipsovercashers.com.
Okay, and I just
And all the books are available through Amazon.
yeah, if you could just maybe you want to leave us with some type of insight or some positive message as we close up.
No, I want to open up one more box, but get us to think about one more thing. Exciting things at the bottom of the ocean. I found things all the way from Alaska down to the Baja Peninsula that
Okay.
are beneath the ocean, and they're ancient. And the one that's my favorite is there is an airport in the Sea of California or off the Baja Peninsula, and it looks just like airports today. In fact, in the book, I have a picture of that and a picture of another airport today. Airports today, the longest runway is just over 3 miles. This thing is 89 miles long. Everything I've found along the ocean, but beneath the ocean, they're staggeringly huge. So we've all heard about Mu or Lemuria or Pan, or about a civilization that sank into the Pacific Ocean. Well, they may very well have been I don't know, I'll say species that were quite large because
Wow.
everything is very huge.
So my positive message from that is that don't shorten your runway, right?
That's a good one. Yeah, I
And
like that. And your can opener thing. That was a good
yeah,
image too.
and leave a lot of room for your growth to extend yourselves.
Absolutely.
So we'll leave it at
Right.
that then.
Can't just be taking selfies all the time.
That's
That
right.
just
That's
doesn't
right.
happen.
Well, all right. Unless there's anything else you'd like to say, I'll like to thank you very much for your inspiring and insightful information. And I have my eyes open for different encounters and different things that are always on my path as well. So I thank
Well,
you.
your mind is busting open, so I'm sure you'll find a lot of good things to find out about. You
Absolutely.
take care.
All right. Thank you.